The human colony ship Artemis had been cruising through deep space for months, its passengers dreaming of a new world. They had left Earth behind, seeking a fresh start on a distant planet that promised life, resources, and safety. But the universe had other plans. A violent solar storm tore through the navigation system, hurling the massive ship toward an uncharted planet. In the chaos of alarms and crashing corridors, no one could predict the scale of disaster waiting for them. When the ship finally struck the planet's surface, it was with the force of a falling star. Metal twisted like paper, sparks erupted in the air, and cries of fear filled the corridors. Survivors stumbled through smoke and debris, their faces streaked with blood and dust. They were stranded on a planet that was alive in ways they could not yet understand. Alien flora sprawled in strange, twisting patterns, while the sky burned with colors no human eye had ever seen. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly foreign. Among the survivors, chaos reigned. Supplies were scarce, medical equipment was broken, and shelter was almost non-existent. The colonists argued, shouted, and fought over what little food remained. In the wreckage, life felt fragile and the future seemed uncertain. But in the shadow of fear, something unusual moved. It was a girl, not human. She scurried among the ruins, hunched over, dragging her hands across the dirt. Her movements were swift, almost animal-like. She picked up scraps of metal, bits of food, and pieces of cloth. She sniffed at each item before discarding it, then tore at a piece of torn fabric as if she were hungry. The colonists called her the scavenger, whispering rumors that she was more beast than girl. She had ragged clothes that hung from her thin frame and hair matted with dirt. Her eyes, bright and alert, darted at every shadow, watching, calculating, waiting. Captain Elias Vorn was one of the first to notice her. He had been a leader on the Artemis, trained to observe, to see beyond immediate danger. Where others saw a starving alien, Elias saw something different. There was a spark in her eyes, intelligence buried beneath the grime and fear. He watched as she avoided traps in the wreckage, sidestepped dangerous chemicals leaking from broken containers, and even nudged supplies toward other survivors without anyone noticing. Her behavior was subtle, quiet, but deliberate. The humans around him were skeptical. "She's just an animal," muttered one engineer, shaking his head as he threw a metal shard into the fire. "She doesn't belong here. She'll eat everything we have and bring trouble." Others nodded, fearful of what they did not understand. The colony had faced many crises, and a strange alien girl was the last thing they wanted. Elias, however, could not look away. He approached her cautiously, holding out a ration pack. She froze, eyes wide, muscles tensed. But instead of fleeing, she tilted her head, studying him. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she reached out, took the pack, and retreated a few steps before opening it. She did not eat immediately. She examined the contents, smelled them, and then tucked them into a torn bag she carried at her side. It was a gesture of trust, a fragile bridge between two species separated by light years of difference. Over the next few days, Elias observed her closely. She had a routine, scavenging scraps from the wreckage and hiding them carefully, but it was more than survival. She repaired small tools, fixed broken containers, and even arranged supplies in patterns that suggested planning. Each action revealed that she was thinking, reasoning, and learning. Elias decided to take a risk. He began leaving small gifts for her: medical supplies, tools, ration packs, and even a blanket to protect her from the planet's cold nights. She accepted them cautiously but never became dependent. She remained elusive, moving quickly through shadows, eating scraps, and sleeping in hidden corners. Yet every day her intelligence became more apparent. She could sense dangers humans missed. When a sudden toxic storm swept across the colony, she led Elias and a small group to a sheltered cave, avoiding falling debris and unstable ground. The other humans noticed, of course. "How is she doing that?" one medic asked, eyes wide as they followed the girl's path through a dangerous cliffside. "She's just a child." They were frightened, unsure whether to trust her. Some argued that she should be contained or worse, left behind. But Elias stood firm. He understood that the girl, whom he now thought of as Scraps, a name the colonists had given her, was more than she appeared. She was capable of feats humans had not yet achieved in this hostile world. Life in the colony grew harsher. Alien predators roamed the forests near the wreckage, hunting everything in sight. Strange plants released toxins in the air, causing burns and sickness. Supplies dwindled rapidly, and morale fell. Colonists argued over food, over leadership, over who would survive. Fear gripped them, and they looked at Scraps with suspicion. But Elias saw opportunity. If they could learn from her, understand her methods, they might survive. He began communicating with her. At first, it was simple gestures, pointing at tools, demonstrating how to fix a broken water filter. Scraps watched intently, copying his actions. Slowly, she began responding, nodding or shaking her head, sometimes handing him a tool he needed before he asked. She learned quickly, faster than any human, adapting to challenges with astonishing speed. One evening, as the planet's twin suns dipped below jagged mountains, Elias followed her to a secluded ravine. She moved with purpose, gathering plants and scraping the earth. Curious, he crouched behind a rock and watched. To his astonishment, she created a small trap for a local predator, a creature much larger and faster than a human could hope to fight. She had no weapons, only her wits and the materials around her. The trap worked perfectly, catching the creature without harm, and she calmly retrieved the bait and reset the mechanism. Elias realized that she was not only intelligent, but also resourceful and compassionate in ways humans rarely were. Over the next few weeks, Elias and Scraps became a team. He guided her when necessary, but she often led him, showing knowledge of the land and survival strategies that humans lacked. She could find clean water, identify edible plants, and anticipate weather changes hours before they arrived. The colony slowly began to rely on her guidance, though many still resisted, clinging to fear and prejudice. One day, while scavenging near the wreckage of the ship's engine core, Elias discovered something remarkable. A faint hum emanated from a buried section of debris. Scraps immediately froze, her eyes wide, and for the first time she did not eat or scavenge. She crouched low, touching a strange metallic object with delicate fingers. The object reacted to her presence, glowing faintly, and a series of alien symbols appeared on its surface. Elias realized this was no ordinary piece of scrap. It was a part of an advanced alien device, something far beyond human understanding. Scraps recoiled slightly, but then pressed closer, her hands trembling. Elias saw recognition in her eyes. This was her past, a connection to a world she had lost, a life she had been forced to leave behind. She was not merely a scavenger or survivor. She was royalty, a princess hidden in the guise of an animal. The revelation stunned him. The girl who had eaten Scraps like a dog, avoided humans, and lived in shadows was not what she seemed. Beneath the grime, beneath the instinctual behavior, lay a mind sharp, powerful, and regal. Elias made a promise silently to himself. He would protect her, help her reclaim her identity, and ensure that humanity and this lost alien heritage could coexist. He knew it would not be easy. The colony had its fears and the planet had its dangers. But he also knew that Scraps, this princess in disguise, was a key to survival. Her abilities could guide the colony through storms, predators, and famine. Together, they could achieve what no human alone could. That night, as the alien sky shimmered with auroras and strange clouds, Elias sat near the fire watching Scraps sleep. She had curled herself into a small bundle, hands tucked under her chin, breathing quietly. In her sleep, her face softened, and for a moment she looked like any human child. Elias realized that appearances were deceiving, that courage, intelligence, and nobility could be hidden beneath the most unlikely exterior. He thought of the challenges ahead, the storms, the predators, the human distrust, but also of the hope she represented. In her, he saw a bridge between worlds, a chance for humans to rise beyond fear and embrace the extraordinary. The colony's survival depended not on technology alone, nor on brute force. It depended on understanding, empathy, and the courage to recognize potential where others saw only fear. And so, with the first light of dawn spilling across the jagged landscape, Elias made a decision. He would stand by her. He would teach her what she needed to know about humans, and he would learn from her what humans had never imagined. The alien girl who consumed Scraps like a dog was no longer just a mystery. She was a beacon, a guide, and perhaps the colony's greatest hope. As the planet awoke with alien sounds, the rustle of leaves, the calls of unseen creatures, the distant rumble of shifting terrain, Elias felt a surge of determination. They had survived the crash, they had survived the chaos, and now, with Scraps at his side, they would survive this world. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew one truth: humanity had not yet seen the full measure of what it could accomplish. With courage, intelligence, and the willingness to see beyond appearances, they could endure. Scraps stirred, opening her eyes and looking at Elias with something that was almost trust. It was not friendship, not yet, but recognition. She understood that this human was different. He saw her. He saw beyond the Scraps, the grime, the fear. He saw the princess beneath. And that recognition, fragile as it was, planted the first seeds of something extraordinary, a partnership that could defy the world, defy expectations, and perhaps change the fate of everyone on the planet. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the wreckage. Birds or bird-like creatures screamed from the alien trees. The colony stirred, waking to another day of struggle. But Elias and Scraps moved together, side by side, ready to face what came next. Every scrap she scavenged, every tool she repaired, every instinct she trusted could mean the difference between life and death. In the wreckage of their fallen ship, on a planet that seemed determined to reject them, a human and an alien girl began a silent revolution. Not with weapons, not with authority, but with vision, intelligence, and an unspoken understanding. Survival was the first step, trust was the next. And the world, dangerous and alien, would soon learn that appearances could deceive, and that even a girl eating scraps could carry the spirit of a queen. The colony had begun to settle into a fragile rhythm. Tents and makeshift shelters were scattered among the wreckage, and the survivors moved cautiously, ever wary of the strange planet. Yet fear still lingered in every corner. Predators prowled the forests, storms could sweep in without warning, and the alien flora sometimes emitted toxic spores that sickened the unprepared. But for all the dangers, the humans were beginning to notice a change. Life in the colony was slowly improving, not because of technology, nor because of rank, but because of the alien girl they had once dismissed as a scavenger. Scraps, as the humans had named her, moved with a purpose that defied expectation. She guided workers to clean water, showed safe paths through the wreckage, and even organized supply caches in clever patterns to prevent theft or waste. Her knowledge of the terrain and instinctual understanding of danger became invaluable. Elias watched her quietly as she worked one morning. She knelt near a broken water filter, examining it carefully. With nimble fingers, she removed a few damaged parts and replaced them with salvaged pieces, repairing what the human engineers had deemed beyond hope. The water flowed cleanly once more, and the colonists who witnessed it gasped. "How does she do that?" whispered one young engineer. "She's not human, but she understands things better than any of us." One day, as the humans attempted to expand their camp, a strange sound echoed through the forests, a low, vibrating growl that seemed to rattle the ground. Predators were approaching, faster and more coordinated than ever. Panic erupted. Colonists shouted, scattering in all directions, abandoning supplies and tools in fear. But Scraps remained calm. She sprinted ahead, assessing the landscape with sharp, calculating eyes. She directed the humans toward a narrow gorge, signaling them to follow. "Now!" Elias shouted, realizing she understood the threat before he could. The predators emerged from the trees, massive, four-legged creatures with glistening fangs and iridescent scales. They were unlike any Earth predator, moving with terrifying speed. Scraps led the humans along a hidden path she had discovered earlier, weaving between rocks and fallen trees. She paused at key points, pulling stones and branches into crude traps. Elias followed, guiding the frightened humans to trust her instructions. The predators approached, snapping jaws and claws reaching for them. But when they triggered Scraps' traps, they were thrown off balance, slowed, and confused. The humans escaped, blinking in awe at her ingenuity. "You saved us," Elias said when the danger had passed, his voice barely above a whisper. Scraps only tilted her head as if the act of saving them was natural, obvious, and required no praise. It became clear to Elias that Scraps' intelligence was not only tactical but strategic. She could anticipate the predators' movements, predict storms, and find resources humans had overlooked. Slowly, some of the other colonists began to see the truth. She was not an animal, but a guide, a protector, and a hidden treasure in a world that seemed determined to destroy them. But fear is a stubborn shadow. Not everyone trusted her. Some colonists whispered that she might be dangerous, that she had hidden motives, or that her alien nature made her unpredictable. A council was formed and arguments erupted. Elias defended her fiercely. "We've seen what she can do," he said. "She saves lives every day. Without her, half of us wouldn't survive the night." While exploring the wreckage for parts to repair the colony's failing power generator, Elias stumbled upon a partially buried device. Its surface was etched with strange symbols, glowing faintly when touched. Scraps immediately reacted. Her eyes widened, her body tensing as if memories long buried had resurfaced. She approached the device slowly, reverently, and placed her hands on its surface. The device pulsed, responding to her touch, and holographic images flickered to life above it. Elias stepped back, stunned. He had seen alien technology before, but this was different. It was advanced, elegant, and clearly designed for someone of her species. Scraps stared at the images, whispering in a language Elias could not understand. He realized then that she was no ordinary scavenger. She was royalty, a princess hidden in plain sight, forced into survival mode by circumstances beyond her control. The girl who had eaten scraps like an animal, avoided humans, and moved through the wreckage like a ghost had a history, a civilization, and a purpose far greater than anyone had imagined. Elias approached her cautiously, careful not to startle her. You are someone important," he said softly. She looked at him, eyes shimmering with emotion, fear, sadness, recognition, and something else he couldn't name. She nodded slowly but said nothing. The truth was unspoken, yet understood. From that moment their relationship shifted. Elias no longer saw her merely as a mysterious ally. He saw her as a leader, someone whose knowledge and abilities could guide the colony to survival and perhaps even prosperity. But the revelation also brought new challenges. Some colonists, already uneasy with her presence, grew suspicious and resentful. Whispers of fear and distrust spread through the camp, threatening to undo the fragile trust that had formed. Elias knew he had to act. He began teaching the humans to follow her instructions, to observe and learn from her methods rather than dismiss them. Slowly, they began to see what he saw. Scraps' intelligence was unparalleled, her instincts precise, and her strategies effective. She could teach them more in a single day than months of trial and error had accomplished. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the jagged horizon, a new threat arrived. The sky darkened, and massive storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed. Rain fell in torrents, mixed with electrical discharges that lit the alien landscape in flashes of brilliance. The humans panicked, struggling to secure shelters and protect supplies. Elias shouted instructions, but it was Scraps who guided them to safety. She moved with purpose, leading small groups to natural caves and hidden crevices. She reinforced fragile shelters, covered exposed rations, and ensured that no one was left behind. When the storm finally passed, the colony was battered but alive. Supplies had been saved and no lives were lost. The humans stared at her in awe. Some fell silent, humbled by her presence. Others began to follow her willingly, trusting her guidance without question. Scraps had become more than a survivor. She was a teacher, a protector, and a symbol of hope. As the days passed, Elias continued to study her. He noticed subtle hints of her royal heritage in the way she carried herself, even when scavenging or hiding. There was dignity in her movements, a grace that no human could mimic. He realized that her survival instincts had honed her body and mind, but her lineage gave her a perspective far beyond the immediate. She was capable of strategy, leadership, and vision that humans were only beginning to comprehend. But the challenges were far from over. The planet itself seemed to conspire against them. New predators emerged, more cunning and dangerous than the last. Strange diseases spread through the colony, testing their endurance and resilience. Resources remained limited, and tensions flared among the humans, some of whom resented the alien girl for her abilities and influence. Elias knew that survival required more than courage. It required partnership. He worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between humans and Scraps, demonstrating her value and helping them understand that intelligence and loyalty could come in unexpected forms. Slowly, the colony began to change. Fear gave way to respect, suspicion to curiosity, and humans began to learn from the alien girl who had once consumed Scraps like an animal. One day, while exploring a distant valley for additional resources, Elias witnessed a remarkable display of her abilities. Scraps had discovered a patch of edible plants that were invisible to human eyes, camouflaged against the alien soil. She carefully harvested them, teaching a small group of humans how to identify and use them without triggering toxins. Her knowledge of the environment, combined with her instinctual understanding of danger, allowed the colony to expand safely into new areas. It was a turning point. The humans began to see her not as a threat, but as a partner. They began to trust her guidance, to follow her strategies, and to value her insights. For the first time since the crash, hope began to take root. Yet, Elias knew that the ultimate test had not yet come. Scraps' abilities were extraordinary, but the planet was still unpredictable. One misstep could destroy the colony, and one moment of mistrust could unravel the fragile bonds they had formed. He resolved to remain vigilant, to continue learning from her, and to protect her from those who would misunderstand or fear her. As the twin moons rose in the sky, casting silver light across the valley, Elias and Scraps sat together, surveying the colony. She ate a small portion of food he had prepared, while he watched, understanding that trust had been earned but not taken for granted. In her eyes, he saw recognition, an acknowledgement that they were allies, partners in survival, and perhaps something more profound. The world remained dangerous, but together they had achieved the impossible. Humans had learned to see beyond appearances, to recognize intelligence and courage in a form they had never expected. Scraps was no longer merely a scavenger. She was a guide, a teacher, and a symbol of resilience. And in this alien wilderness, the seeds of something extraordinary were beginning to grow, a partnership between species, built on trust, respect, and the unyielding will to survive. The colony had survived storms, predators, and the uncertainty of a foreign world, but the greatest challenge was yet to come. The alien girl, Scraps, had grown stronger, more confident, and more aware of her true identity. Elias had come to rely on her not just as an ally, but as a guide and teacher. The humans were learning from her, adapting, and realizing that survival was no longer about brute strength or technology alone. It was about observation, intelligence, and trust. One morning, the sky darkened with an unusual hue. Elias and Scraps were surveying the outskirts of the camp when they noticed a distant movement across the plains. Shadows danced in patterns too organized to be natural, moving faster and with purpose. Scraps crouched low, eyes narrowing. "They're coming," she whispered in a language Elias did not understand, though the urgency was clear. Predators, yes, but these were different. Larger, smarter, coordinated. The kind the colony had never faced. The humans panicked, shouting and scrambling to gather weapons and supplies. But Scraps remained calm. She gestured for Elias to follow her, leading him to a series of hidden trenches and natural rock formations she had discovered weeks earlier. Her mind worked faster than any human could process. She set traps, barricaded entrances, and positioned humans strategically, teaching them where to stand and when to act. The predators struck as the first rays of sunlight touched the planet. They moved with terrifying speed and intelligence, but Scraps anticipated every move. A trap would spring, a predator would stumble, and the humans would gain a critical advantage. Elias marveled at her skill, realizing that she combined instinct with strategy, creating a defense that no human mind alone could have conceived. Yet it was not just her cleverness that saved them. It was her ability to inspire trust. The humans followed her guidance without hesitation. Fear became discipline. Panic became focus. And in that moment, Elias understood the full measure of what Scraps represented. She was not merely surviving, she was elevating humanity, teaching them to see beyond fear and instinct, to rise above the chaos with intelligence and cooperation. When the last predator fell into a trap, Elias approached her, breathless. "You saved everyone," he said, awe and gratitude in his voice. Scraps only nodded, her expression calm but unyielding. She did not seek praise. Her focus was survival, protection, and leadership. The aftermath of the battle revealed another truth. While securing the perimeter, Elias discovered a hidden chamber beneath the wreckage of the colony's old power hub. Scraps approached, eyes wide with recognition. Inside, they found remnants of alien technology, more advanced than anything humanity had seen. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star maps, schematics, and symbols of authority. Scraps touched the panels with reverence, her fingers tracing the glowing symbols. Elias watched in silence, understanding that this was more than survival gear. It was proof of her royal heritage. She was a princess, trained for leadership and prepared to reclaim her place in a world far beyond this planet. But the crash had forced her into hiding, into survival, stripping her of status and reducing her to what humans had first seen. A scavenger, a child eating scraps. For the first time, Scraps spoke in a language Elias could partially understand. Her voice was soft, melodic, but full of authority. "This is my world," she said, pointing to the holographic maps. "I must protect it, and you." Elias realized she had accepted the humans as part of her charge, not as subjects, but as allies. The colony began to adapt. Under her guidance, they repaired more of the ship's technology, salvaged materials, and even began to cultivate the alien flora in controlled environments. Scraps taught them which plants were safe, which predators could be tamed or deterred, and how to build defenses that complemented the natural environment. The humans' reliance on her wisdom became the colony's greatest strength. But the planet was not yet done testing them. A massive predator, larger and more cunning than any before, emerged from the forests. It had been observing, learning, adapting to human defenses. Panic surged through the colony. The creature approached the perimeter, its massive frame shaking the ground with each step. Weapons fired, but they barely fazed it. Fear threatened to unravel the fragile cohesion the colony had built. Scraps stepped forward. She had observed the predator, understood its behavior, and already formulated a plan. Using a combination of traps, environmental hazards, and strategic positioning, she orchestrated a defense that involved every member of the colony. Humans moved in sync with her, following signals and gestures with precision. The predator lunged, but it was too late. Every attack she had anticipated, every trap she had set, weakened it systematically. Finally, with a coordinated effort, the creature was subdued, not killed, but captured safely. The humans cheered, but Elias saw something deeper. Scraps had shown them the power of intelligence over brute force. She had demonstrated that survival was about thinking, observing, and acting with purpose. She had transformed fear into strength, panic into order, and distrust into cooperation. That night, as the twin moons rose and cast silver light over the colony, Elias approached Scraps. She sat quietly, examining the captured predator with meticulous care. "You're incredible," he said softly, "more than we ever imagined." She looked at him, eyes reflecting the moons above, and nodded once. No words were needed, her actions spoke louder than any language. In the following days, the colony flourished. Under Scraps' guidance, humans repaired the ship's communication systems, built stronger shelters, and cultivated food from alien plants. They were no longer passive survivors. They were a team, learning from an alien princess who had once been seen as nothing more than a scavenger. Scraps, however, did not rest. She explored further, mapping the planet, identifying hidden resources, and predicting dangers before they arrived. Elias accompanied her, observing her in action. Every movement, every decision revealed a mind trained for leadership, strategy, and survival. She had been forced into hiding, but now, in the presence of humans willing to learn and follow, she reclaimed her power, not through domination, but through partnership. The ultimate test arrived when the colony received a signal from a distant human settlement. A rescue ship was en route, but it would not arrive for several days. Meanwhile, an unexpected event occurred. An enormous alien storm, far larger than any before, began to sweep across the planet. The wind tore at shelters, lightning struck trees, and torrents of rain threatened to flood the camp. Humans panicked, unsure how to respond, but Scraps remained calm. She led the colony to natural caves she had discovered, reinforcing entrances and creating drainage channels to prevent flooding. She organized the humans into teams, assigning tasks based on skill and knowledge. Each instruction was precise, each action calculated. The storm hit, howling and furious, but thanks to her planning, no lives were lost. When the skies cleared, the colony emerged intact, stronger, and more united than ever. Elias realized then that Scraps' leadership was not just about survival, it was transformative. She had taught them courage, intelligence, and trust. Humans who had once feared her now followed her willingly, learning to see beyond appearances and value the abilities of others, no matter how different they seemed. One evening, as the first light of dawn colored the alien sky, Scraps led Elias to a cliff overlooking the valley. Below, the colony moved with purpose, gathering resources, repairing equipment, and tending to the wounded. She stood tall, her posture regal, her eyes reflecting authority and intelligence. Elias knew the truth. The girl who had once consumed Scraps like a dog was no longer merely a survivor. She was a princess, a leader, and a guide who had transformed humanity's understanding of resilience, intelligence, and cooperation. In her presence, humans had learned to rise above fear, to adapt, and to thrive in a world that had seemed impossible. The distant hum of the approaching rescue ship reached their ears. Humans began to prepare for departure, but the colony would never forget what they had learned. They had survived not by brute force alone, but by embracing the guidance of an alien mind that had once been dismissed as a scavenger. Scraps turned to Elias, a faint smile touching her lips. No words were needed. Their partnership had endured storms, predators, and doubt. Together, they had achieved the impossible. Humanity had seen its full potential not alone, but alongside an alien princess who had taught them the value of intelligence, observation, and trust. As the rescue ship descended from the skies, casting a silver light over the valley, Elias watched the humans board, ready to return to the wider universe. Scraps remained beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She would stay, a guardian of the planet, a teacher of survival, and a symbol of hope for those who would follow. In the end, The story of the girl who ate scraps like a dog had transformed into a tale of courage, intelligence, and partnership. Humans had learned to see beyond appearances, to recognize strength where it was least expected, and to trust in the abilities of others. The planet had tested them, but under Scrap's guidance, they had not only survived, they had thrived. And in that moment, Elias understood the greatest lesson of all. True power is not in dominance or fear, but in the courage to trust, the wisdom to learn, and the vision to rise together, even in the face of the unknown. The twin moons shone down on the valley, illuminating a world transformed. Humans had survived. Scraps had led them. And together they had shown that intelligence, empathy, and courage could overcome even the harshest of alien worlds. The partnership of human and alien, teacher and student, survivor and princess, would be remembered for generations, a testament to the extraordinary potential that arises when beings choose to see beyond fear, embrace trust, and work together to face the impossible.